How's everybody doing on this Friday morning of the holiday weekend where it feels like it's November, but it is May 28th and we are weeks away from summer and it's going to be beautiful after this weekend. And actually, it's going to be beautiful this weekend. After today, it's going to be clear. So if you have holiday plans, it'll be a little cool outside. But we're Rochesterians, we about that. We can do it and do it well. So let's go on. We're going to have a little lesson today. If some of you have been here for a while, you'll notice that I circle back to concepts and ideas many times and through different lessons. And if you notice that I'm doing that, pay attention to those ideas and concepts because what that means is those are things that have been designated as being important on the exam. So when I stress them like that over and over and over, trying to help you get it up here. So when you see it on the test, and you're not going to have like a whole string of questions about one topic, but they'll throw them in one or two, and you got to have them up here. So this is why I'm doing this. There is a method to my madness, and so we just all want you to be in the best position for success. So we're going to get started on a quick social studies lesson, and I'm typing, I'm glad you're here. If you are here, otherwise, I know that you're watching this in your own time. However, you can make this thing work, you do that. And if you need any help at all from us, you let us know. So let's get started. I'm going to just throw some images up here first. And so this first picture, I don't know if it's big enough. Let's see if I can make it any bigger. I'm going to try. Did that make it any bigger? Let's see about this. How's this? Yeah. So this first picture is of a home in Puerto Rico during the Depression. Just take a moment and look at the picture. There's nothing for me to add. Words would not be doing it any justice at all. But this is a picture. And I have another picture that I want to share with you. This is a picture of a family during the Depression on the mainland. I don't know if I can make that bigger. Let's see if I can make that a little bigger because it looks like on your screen. I don't know how big you're getting it, but you just take a moment and look at that, how folks were living. And let that speak for itself. What I have, this is interesting. This is the thing about history, y'all. Things happened to everyone. There's a saying that when America catches the flu, Black America gets pneumonia. So what that means is, if you're already living in an oppressed condition, when things turn down in the economy, the poor take the hit harder. So in looking for lessons about the Depression, I found a really, really good PowerPoint. She just eliminated people of color as though they didn't exist, and as though they didn't suffer more greatly. Um, let's look at this PowerPoint here and uh, and take a look. Hold on. That's not it. Are you kidding me? That's not it. Hold on a second. I don't know what that is, y'all. It says PowerPoint. Wait a minute. That's not it. That's hysterical. And you know what? Things happen. And I don't know how that did happen, but then you know what we're going to do? We're going to talk about how the Great Depression affected African Americans and Puerto Ricans on the mainland of Puerto Rico. Let's take a look first at the history of Puerto Rico. It's just ridiculous. Oh my goodness. Things happen, you know? So, Puerto Rico was established in 1521 by the Spanish, 10 years after establishing themselves on the island. However, the Spanish were oppressive rulers, and they also had Cuba during this time. And during the Spanish American War, we intervened to help Cuba. That's what we said. Uh, and then during the Spanish American War, we won. Because we were here, we were able to fight a war effectively in our own backyard, and we had more resources to give to that battle. And so the result of the Spanish American War was that the US took over the territories of Guam, the Philippines, Puerto Rico, and Cuba. They ended up giving Cuba freedom, but kept Puerto Rico as a colony. And at that time, uh, Cuba was prized for its sugar. Coffee originally, they tried coffee and it was dominant, but the United States put huge taxes on it. And then there was a terrible hurricane. Uh, in most of the island's land was in the hands of a few wealthy owners and owners that did not live in Puerto Rico. So after the Spanish American War, Puerto Ricans thought that America, they identified with the principles of democracy, and they were hopeful that the United States would grant them political freedoms, but they did not. So they passed an act in 1900 that was more harsh than the rule they had under Spain. And what happened was that the governor would be appointed by the President of the United States. Any other office holders would be appointed by the president, including the justices of the Puerto Rico Supreme Court. Local laws passed were subject to veto by Congress. They could only send a non-voting resident commissioner to Congress. They could not negotiate trade treaties with foreign nations, and they retired their peso at 60 cents to the dollar, which people lost big money. But the cost of living went up. The cost of land fell and allowed wealthy sugar corporations to come to Puerto Rico to sweep up land. And then sugar became the cash crop. However, the United States put trade restrictions on it. And they created an economy solely dependent on what happened in the United States. So the big four sugar companies made big profits because they paid low wages. 63 cents for a 10-hour day in 1917. They also taxed rum, they taxed tobacco. However, the taxes were returned to the island for that. So they opened trade a little, in the 1920s. And most people on the island worked in sugar. So when the Depression hit, uh, Puerto Rico took a very big hit as well. Remember that. Um, People were mostly agricultural, depending upon, and then later on, depending upon sugar, and their wages were controlled. So the Depression hit, it hit hard, very hard. Now I'm moving on. African Americans and how the Depression affected them. So, as we know, the Depression lasted for 10 years. And it was the worst economic downturn in the world because by this time, the United States already was a major world economy and even a global one beginning to be. And so few people suffered more than African Americans in this country, other than maybe indigenous people. And so there's a saying called last hired, first fired. So African Americans were the first to see jobs cut, hours cut, had the highest unemployment rate. Um, they already had lower paying positions and insecure work. Uh, Low level, entry level, low paying jobs disappeared or were filled by whites that needed to work. The unemployment rate climbed to approximately 50%. And in the South, it was double or triple that of the white population, as high as 70%. Jobless rates topped 50% in Chicago, Philly, Detroit, Pittsburgh. So, what people did is they left the South. Many worked as sharecroppers, harvesting crops on land that was owned by others where they had to buy the seed, pay a tax, and they'd never make money. So many left the South and began what was called the Great Migration, which is how many African Americans ended up in the urban cities of America. Um, what they found, however, was that segregation and Jim Crow laws followed blacks from the South to the North. Um, Prior to the Great Depression, African Americans traditionally voted Republican, which was still seen as the party of Lincoln. However, with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who came up with the New Deal to help pull America out of the Depression, folks were confident or hopeful that things would change and began to vote Democratic. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about with you. However, discrimination still followed people of color, follows people of color today. Puerto Ricans that were on the mainland found the same types of discrimination. And during the Great Depression, people left and returned to Puerto Rico. That's all I have for today. I apologize. Um, if we remember how the Great Depression began, the stock market fell. We started to overproduce, and people couldn't had what they needed, and others couldn't buy. We had the Dust Bowl, the huge drought in the Midwest, and farmers began to lose big money. And all of those things happened at one time, and the stock market became so hot. Um, that people were coming in not knowing what they were doing and losing money, and all of those things conspired, and also the war. All of those things, World War One, conspired against Americans. So that's pretty much what you need to know. Let me close these out. And that's pretty much what you need to know. Again, you'll hear it, I'm quite sure, before we finish. Everyone have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful holiday. Be blessed. Stay safe. And I will see you soon on Tuesday. Take care.